Let's get back to our top story now. Russian President Vladimir Putin has said a ceasefire deal has been reached between the Syrian regime and rebel fighters. It is due to come into force at 22 GMT. Now, Turkey and Russia say they would act as guarantors of the deal. Well, let's get more now from Brigadier General Mark Kimmitt. He is the former Deputy Director for Strategy of the U.S. Army. Thanks so much for coming in. Okay, on paper, this nationwide ceasefire deal looks like a massive achievement, given all the efforts that have failed in the past. Are you impressed?
Well, I really am, if for no other reason than the humanitarian crisis might abate now if we can get the Russians to guarantee it and the Turks to guarantee that the humanitarian crisis will be addressed. But there are some political consequences as a result of this deal.
Such as?
Well, there are some unsettled questions. Iran will not be happy at the fact that they're looking at Assad to step down. I think many of the countries will be concerned in the surrounding region that it looks like they're going to partition Syria. And then, of course, there's a geopolitical issue about the Russian involvement in the Middle East versus the American involvement and the Arab involvement in this crisis.
Honestly, though, how optimistic can we be? Putin himself has described this as fragile just today. They're still debating. Putin said there are 7 core groups that are going to be involved. But then we heard Alijan explaining out of Idlib that some of these groups are actually so closely tied. You even have brothers in the same family fighting for different rebel factions. Some are included in the ceasefire and some aren't. Does that run the risk of this whole thing unraveling if they can't come to terms with those nuances there between these groups?
There are 2 issues. I think the fact that Turkey and Russia are guaranteeing this ceasefire, that means if there's any breakdown in the ceasefire, that Russia and Turkey may take direct action against these forces. Also, in my view, there's a lot of battlefield exhaustion out there. Everybody's been looking for a reason to have a legitimate ceasefire, so we can only hope that this comes about. But there will be people that try to stop this ceasefire from happening, and it will be in the best interest of those that agreed to not only monitor, but to enforce.
Okay, but the fact that this was brokered without the United States and without the United Nations says what to you?
Well, and also without the Gulf Arabs as well. I think we're seeing a fundamental shift in the region. The Russian involvement, a weakened American foreign policy that doesn't seem legitimate to the people in the region. It will have long-term consequences.
Does this kind of solidify what perhaps Russia, and maybe to a lesser extent Turkey, wanted to see from the beginning, that they are recognized as the actual, I shouldn't say Turkey, I should more say Iran, that they should be recognized as the actual power brokers in this region and in this conflict, because it is in their direct sphere of influence. It is in their backyard. The United States, they feel, is only involved because it has to be through the United Nations and being arguably the most powerful country still on the planet. So does it give them what they want in that recognition that they are the power brokers here? It matters to them most.
I think you're right. The United States, especially with President Trump coming in, seems to be quite weary of foreign intervention. Russia, quite the opposite, is eager to intervene in regions that they believe they have a special interest. Iran, I think we all recognize that Iran has a long-standing desire to establish hegemony over the region. And of course, that's where the Gulf Arabs are going to be most concerned.
Just give me the general terms of your outlook going forward now. Do you think things are finally on track to see peace in Syria?
We can only hope. We've had many ceasefires in the past. We've had many good intentions in the past. None have held. But as I said earlier, I think in this case, the battlefield exhaustion of all parties may lead us to a ceasefire that could potentially hold. But then we need to get to the political outcomes.
Right. And we'll talk about that at a later time. Thanks so much for joining us now, Mark Kimmitt.